A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple there whom he loved, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his home. The Gospel of the Lord. There are times when an experience or unexpected encounter is so terrible or terrifying or sad that it pushes us to the edge, leaving us unable to speak. Take, for instance, the event in Boston on Monday, April the 15th, that left 3 people dead and more than 170 people injured near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. This was certainly one of those unspeakable moments. What does one do when encountering such an experience that is so unspeakable? What can one say in the face of such scandalous violence in one's own backyard? Well, the first thing I want to say is, we do not have a God who does not understand our suffering. Don't think that because Jesus was God, he felt less pain than we do. If anything, he suffered more intensely. He was more sensitive, alive to everything human. The crown on his head was made of real thorns. It was warm spit that spattered his face. A tough whip made his back flinch. Those were sharp nails that pierced his hands and feet. The blood flowing from his body to the earth was his. It's not surprising that he called out in the garden on the night before he died, "Father, take this cup away from me. Father, don't let me die." But the Father did let him die, and consequently, the last words we hear Jesus cry are, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And on that first Good Friday, everyone who accompanied Jesus in Jerusalem knew suffering as well. Both Jesus' disciples, who had expected a joyful victory but received a miserable failure, and his family and friends, who had followed him to the great city in happiness but were met with sadness. Like the people in Boston who had prepared for joy, those with Jesus must have been at a loss to take in all that misery which they witnessed. Here was the person they loved, the one they knew well, for whom they had had such hopes. Here he was cut down, a victim of senseless violence as sure as those on Boylston Street were. So Jesus is with us in our suffering, not only because he loves us, but because he suffered. The second thing I want to say is that at such unspeakable moments, in such tragedies that we experience, our silence is the language that speaks more powerfully than our own words. Look to Mary, our mother. In this gospel account from John of Mary standing at the foot of the cross, There's no mention of Mary bewailing and lamenting beneath the cross, as there is of the women who accompanied Jesus along the way to Calvary. No words of hers at the cross have been conveyed to us, as at the wedding feast of Cana. Beneath the cross, Mary, unlike others who were there, didn't cry out. She didn't say, "Come down from that cross, save yourself and me." Nor did she cry, "My son, you have saved others. Why don't you save yourself too?" Even though it isn't difficult to understand that similar thoughts and wishes must have come to her mother's heart. She didn't even ask Jesus, "Son, why have you done this to me?" as she had done when she found him as a young boy in the temple. At this point, underneath the cross, only her silence is transmitted to us. It's interesting that in Luke's gospel, Mary is silent at the birth of Jesus. And in John's gospel here this afternoon, she was silent at the moment of the death of Jesus. The difference, I think, lies in the fact that the wisdom of the world is expressed through words, whereas the language of the cross is expressed through silence. The language of the cross is silence. Silence keeps the odor of sacrifice for God alone. Silence prevents our suffering from being dissipated, broken up, and us grasping for watery words to wash away the pain. How right and how wise the liturgy on Good Friday afternoon is, because at the hour of Jesus' death on the cross, the entire church throughout the entire world begins a solemn silence that remains hushed throughout Good Friday and Holy Saturday right up to the evening vigil. John's Gospel says, "Standing by the cross of Jesus was his mother Mary, and near her was the disciple whom Jesus loved." What took place at the cross is what every believer should do in times of painful suffering and unexpected tragedies. We should stay near Mary, close to the cross of Jesus, just as the disciple whom Jesus loved did. And how should we respond? Again, I suggest we do as Mary did. Love and be silent and listen to the one who loves us, speaking to us from his cross.